Welcome to the Butterfly Effect, and we're here with Blair Aaron Delancey, and he's an up and coming author, and he has an up and coming book, and the book is called "Don't Jump" by Blair Delancey. You're gonna find it on Amazon, and you're gonna also find it on Barnes and Noble, and there's gonna be other platforms, and we'll announce them when they come in. Blair, you wrote this book. I, I gotta say, I've read it multiple times. And
Oh, thank you.
you're welcome. There's 3 poems of all the poems that you've written. There's 3 poems that I absolutely love. And I'm going to turn on page 23. Uh, like, I want the audience to picture this is like 2015, 2016, and you wrote, during the American elections, a lot of things are going on inside the world, and you wrote a big ball of madness, right? So it starts off. There's different quotes inside this poem, and I'm gonna choose just 2 of them, or maybe 3 of them. And you said, "But can we go to 1492, since Columbus lost his shoe and turned the ocean blue into a red whirlpool?" Okay.
Well, Miss, of course, first of all, thank you for having me here. But of course, when I wrote A Big Ball of Madness, a lot of turbulence was, when I wrote mostly the entire book, a lot of turbulence was going on in the world, and I tried to organize my thoughts. And The Big Ball of Madness truly is me looking at least the fallacies that I grew up with in life and what was told to me versus the actual reality of it. And Columbus was definitely something, at least as an islander, that I, of course, needed to talk about, and the utter hypocrisy of the educational system at that time.
Okay, great. And then another uh, little part in that poem I love is, "When the birds were chained, having a stove as their cage, bearing with diamond rings, no one impressed about their song, nor their flight, or how many eggs they laid." Now I'm going to tell you my interpretation
Okay.
after I got a little bit from you, and I want you to tell me if I'm spot on.
Oh,
The
please.
birds, are you fighting for women's right here? Are the birds chained to their cage is about women stay at home, because back in probably the 50s and 60s. Tell me, I mean, that's my interpretation. Yeah, and you said nobody impressed with their song, nobody want to hear it. Is this fighting for women's right? Tell me, what were
Well,
you thinking?
well, of course, when it comes to the imagery that I brought out to do that, and the imagery I was looking for, I specifically was looking towards all, uh, shall we say, generational issues and all of the generational hypocrisies. And by the time I was looking at that, you did do the right time frame. I was looking at when I was writing that section, particularly in the 1950s to 60s, to the civil rights era, to the women's suffrage era, to everywhere, in which that national and accepted hypocrisies were at. And yes, honestly, I feel like I want to, well, even though women's rights has progressed to a large extent, I feel like there could always be progress made to women's rights, men's rights, and to racial rights. And I definitely wanted to endorse that into this book and to this poem.
Okay, something, and as you say this, and you see the growth of women from the 50s to now, how do you feel then of the Me Too movement?
Well, I feel like that the Me Too movement is a very good movement to stand up and to charge and to tackle what has been infesting things directly. Though I do have minor criticisms about the evolution of it on how, and this falls upon every social media movement that falls upon anything, such from BLM to the Me Too movement to anything, that I feel like the flag for it has been parodied and sort of lost to a certain extent. Uh, and I feel like uh, definitely that at least from its conception to now, that it's sort of fizzled out a little bit for a reason, even though I feel like a movement for women like that is entirely necessary. And not only just women, men too.
Okay, you talk about women and you talk about men. How do you feel about gay rights, trans, um, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I don't believe that I specifically went into the poem about this, but as for gay and trans rights, um, what I believe truly is that human beings human beings are human beings and should be accepted as such. And whether, at least to what I grew up on, whether it be from your background to who you choose to love to anything, you have to be respected as a human being. And I feel like I would not do my due diligence as a Christian if I didn't try to follow those values. So honestly, just treat everybody with human basic respect.
Okay, and I like how you said that because there's a part in that book that you're speaking, right? And when you're speaking to this part in this book, it talks about strange fruits, and you're so young for this because you're 16 then when you wrote this, and you're 20 years old now. 19 years old now, sorry. I'm trying to put age on you. You're 19 years old now, and you wrote this. And most people your age would not know this. You said, I would continue, but I'm afraid I'll be a strange fruit on a tree. And so we know what strange fruits were, because back in the South, they were actually lynching. How do you know? How do you know about this? You're 19 years old.
Well, Miss, sadly, you're never too young to be hated. At the end of the day, sorry. Uh, at the end of the day, uh, what happens is that, especially the way I was raised, you couldn't be too careful with the people you were around. You had to learn where you came from and how much progress has been made for you. And I have learned how much progress was made for me from the civil rights era, and I learned heavily into that. And I grew to grew that definitely played a part in a lot of my writing today. And at the end of the day, I'm thankful that I learned early about the atrocities that came before so that I can recognize the atrocities that come now.
Okay, and I want to ask you because I'm glad you brought that point up. And when I read this book, you're not only dealing. Well, I didn't see where you deal with gay, the gay community. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I see you dealt with racism, black and white. I see you dealt with us women's right, and then I see you dealt in this poem called "The Righteous Rat," the rights of the poor, right? And the rights of the poor, and how, and you said that you're a Christian. And, most people would say that's not a Christian way to look at it, that gay have rights. What do you say to people who think that Christians shouldn't believe that gay people have rights?
Well, honestly, I feel like the Bible and Scripture has been used a ton in certain sections of the world, and heck, a lot here. Excuse me, I just need a sip.
Okay.
But yes, I feel like Scripture has been used to put down people of every minority
Okay.
from
like you said, the scripture has been used to put down people from every minority, like you said.
Yes.
And so, most pastors would disagree with you and say to you, uh, most pastors would disagree with you and say to you that, Blair, you're only 19 years old. Why do you think that God would love gay people? What would you say to those pastors?
Well, at the end of the day, why does God love you? Because at the end of the day, I know that I'm a flawed human being, and everybody else is a flawed human
So
being.
you're not saying the gay is flawed.
No, no, of course, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that at the end of the day, to whatever you see in people is just what people are. And Jesus accepts everybody from every single walk of life, whether that be Palestinian, Jewish, uh, from any walk of life. And so why can't we do that nowadays?
And so you're saying to be Christian is to accept people for who they are.
Definitely, absolutely, and I don't see any other way to it. Of course, the issue of why it is the way it is more nuanced than that, but I feel that like the solution is brutally simple.
How simple is it?
Well, it's as simple as love thy neighbor. It's ridiculously so. It's treat how you would want to be treated, and if you can understand and connect with other people as human beings, I feel like that makes it much easier to connect with people as human beings instead of other labels that we put on human beings.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question that is going to take a little time to digest now that you said that. And I want to know uh, how you feel about somebody said, I'm gay, but I'm a Christian.
Well, especially with dealing with being growing up all the time, I see honestly no reason why you couldn't be both. Of course, being accepted by your community is one thing, and but God is another. Uh, you don't have to be accepted in terms of that, your community and how they think, because at the end of the day, it is just a personal relationship with you and God.
So,
But we should get back to the actual book.
yes, because that's what I was just going to bring it all the way around. So that's why, I mean, now you make me feel like the book Don't Jump is telling people, look, it's okay to be you.
Uh, yes, it's
And this general message is stop looking down on everybody else. From the righteous rat, the righteous rat, she's near church, and I don't want to give it away, but people are going into this church and they're looking down at her, and so
yes.
it's like you're fighting constantly inside these pages for what others, the world, consider is the underdog.
Uh, well, the underdog may not be the right word to use. At the end of the day, the don't jump, the righteous rat, and the big ball of madness, and many others in the book, is about what makes sense in the world, and it's not. It's fighting for it and bringing attention to it, sure, but it's also showing how we've just universally accepted these ideas. We've just accepted these things as natural, and even to the people who are downtrodden to a certain extent, have also accepted it as natural. And I wanted to, as I was growing up, make sense of it, and through these pages, this is what makes the most sense to me.
Like I hear you when you talk and you're talking about God, and most people believe that with your kind of education, and especially with your IQ, they wouldn't think that you would believe that there is a God. So I'm going to talk about the author himself. Why do you believe that there's a God?
Well, of course, your faith can vary widely. Uh, Although I have my issues with the organization and religion in which I not only partake in and what is shoved directly into me, in which they can have a sort of effect of my way or the highway, let's put it. But I feel like, to me, God is beyond that. Of course, people have their own understandings and relationships with God, but for me, it's more so I am a flawed human being, and for me, at the end of the day, everybody is. And to have acceptance and to have love and to have that be supported, that is the most important way to go about it.
I just want to touch on another point because it goes away from, it talks of even about protecting the planet, its depths, longings. It's a point that you will call depths longing. And he says, so these are my words of warning,
Yes,
just to prevent our ironic mourning
yes,
when, for when our eggheads wake up to the morning that when we realize we have caused today that death has been longing. So you truly believe if we do not treat the planet well, we're going to regret it.
Oh, of course. Look at the climate that is going on now, the record levels of hurricanes. For instance, look at Hurricane Doreen that I experienced personally. Sometimes you would look to older generations and they would comment on how it used wouldn't didn't used to be that bad. I feel like our planet has suffered through a lot, and it is the duty of human beings to take care of it.
Okay.
Now,
Now, you know,
yes,
you said it's duties of a human being to take care of the planet.
yes,
And so you do believe this point that one day we're going to wake up if we don't take care of the planet, that we're going to see that because today you say that death has been longing.
yes.
Yes.
Honestly, I feel like that could be achieved through just minor acts to spreading the word. There's a instance and charity going on around the time of this recording called Team Seas by Mr. Beast, I believe, where he wants to clean up the ocean, and that's marvelous and fantastic for me. But at the end of the day, it's a governmental issue, and where we can do it and do it on a national scale, and it's a personal issue to care about it enough to want to push it to that extent.
National or international scale, sorry.
Uh, National from each country, and international as countries unite to make the earth cleaner.
Let me find out about Blair. Blair's a child. What type of child you were, Blair? I mean, I want to know, I want you to know that I am aware of what type of child you were, but I need
Yes.
the audience to know. I mean, were you a type of child that loved to play, loved to go out and communicate with your peers? Tell me what type of child you were, and why do you think you were that type of child? Can you give us a clue, please?
Well, at the end of the day, the type of child I would describe myself as is more of a ghost. In all retrospects, I mostly observed. I didn't really interact or go out much, and I'm sort of the person that faded in the background in the room. Uh, I remember on a few instances that I just minded my own business, and people would comment about 30 minutes after thinking that they were in the room alone, just look over to my corner and just ask me how long I've been there. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I don't consider myself, at least you mentioned before that I have a high IQ and all of that. I don't consider myself a special case or a special person. I merely consider myself ordinary in most contexts. I don't really see anything past that. I merely just wrote down what I was feeling, and at least to what early on, it's what a few others were feeling, and hopefully the audience can connect with that too.
Okay. Did you love school when you were young?
No, just no.
What about school you didn't like? You didn't like the fact that um, you
Yeah,
didn't like the fact that that there was so much to learn. What about school that you did not like? Do you like the institution? Do you like the educational system? What is it that you did not like about school? Tell me,
well,
and tell me how you think we could change it.
at the end of the day, school for me, I appreciate for once. I have to give my heart out to every teacher that decides to teach, for every principal that decides to administrate and gives your all into every single student that you have. For me, that's the only way I survive school. And I do love the idea of school in which it is a place of learning, but I feel like school has become, at least to an institution, a system of regurgitation. A You learn this piece of information and you spit it back out at the end of the week on a Friday after on a test. And I feel like that system of regurgitation, that's not learning to a certain extent. And people, of course, can learn from that and have different learning preferences, but at least that's not the learning preference that fit me and fit many others.
Okay, Blair, and so we're closing this interview, and I just want you to wrap it up. Give us your last words, your last thoughts before we go, please.
Well, at the end of the day, I hope that everybody out there enjoys the book if they pick it up. I would encourage you to do so. And that everybody, I hope that we can all see a better tomorrow as every tomorrow becomes slightly better, whether it be from a random act of kindness to enjoying a gloomy day. So, yes.
And that's Blair Delancey and the Butterfly Effect. And we thank you for this opportunity, for this interview. And I'm going to get your autograph now, whilst I still can.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we're signing out.